Alright, welcome back everyone. It's your favorite World of Warships / totally professional noob YouTuber reporting for duty. And today we're back with yet another spicy tier list because apparently my only personality trait now is ranking ships and getting flamed in the comments for it. But hey, we move. So today we're diving into the tier 10 tech tree destroyers. And before you ask, yes, this is part 1 of a 2-part series. Why 2 parts? Well, I could say it's to give each ship the attention it deserves, but really, it's because cramming 14 destroyers into one video sounds like pain, and I respect my sanity just enough to avoid that. In this video, we're looking at the Japanese legends, Shimakaze and Harugumo, the good old gearing from the US of A, Russia's finest chaos agents Grozovoi and Delny, and of course the German tryhards Elbing and Z52. We'll be sorting them into the classic S, A, B, and C tiers based on how they perform in the current meta, how fun they are to play, and how much emotional damage they cause to other players. Let's stop pretending I'm a real naval historian and get straight into part 1 of this destroyer deathmatch. So let's kick things off with Shimakaze, the destroyer that every noob thinks is broken and every veteran either fears or laughs at depending on who's playing her. On paper, she looks absolutely cracked. She's got 3 launchers, 5 torpedoes each, which means a full 15 torps heading toward whatever poor soul happens to be in the wrong spot. And if those torpedoes actually connect, yeah, it's game over. Go back to port and start mentally preparing for the next match. Now let's talk numbers. She's running 127mm guns, 3 turrets, 2 barrels each. But realistically, those are just for show. If you're trying to gunfight anything with Shimakaze, you've already made some kind of mistake. Her guns are slow, her reload isn't great, and while she can deal damage, she's clearly designed to just vanish, drop torps, and disappear again, like a sea gremlin. She's got 11.4 kilometer torp range, which means you can sit in safety and still threaten huge areas of the map. Her concealment is solid, top speed's 39 knots, and she's got engine boost and smoke, which gives her a decent get out of jail card if things go wrong. But that 17.9k HP isn't saving you from radar cruisers or any competent gunboat. So staying alive means actually knowing when to play aggressive and when to just wait it out. Anti-air? Yeah, not really a thing here. The continuous damage is 89 and shell explosive damage is 1610, which sounds cute on paper, but basically means carriers will harass you like it's their full-time job. You pick her to flood people's screens with torps and pray at least 3 of them land. Overall, she's still a strong pick, especially for torpedo lovers, but she's got clear weaknesses. 1 radar, 1 plane, 1 mistake, and you're done. So I'm putting her in A tier. She's got the tools, she's got the impact, but she's not exactly beginner friendly and definitely not built for chaotic brawls. Great if you know what you're doing, painful if you don't. Okay, now let's talk about Harugumo, aka the destroyer that woke up and chose violence. This thing is what happens when Japan looks at a light cruiser and goes, yeah, let's just shrink it, call it a destroyer, and watch chaos unfold. Armed with 5 twin 100mm guns, she's basically a floating minigun that sets entire caps on fire. I mean, yeah, technically she has 1 torpedo mount with 6 fish, but you'll rarely use them unless you're cornered or trying to flex that you remembered the keybind. Now, on paper, she looks like a beast. A firing range of 12.6 kilometers, a solid 25,600 HP. But don't let the stats fool you, because she's not as tanky as she looks. Her rudder shift is 5.5 seconds, which is a bit of a yikes when you're getting focused, and she moves at a not so blazing 35.7 knots, which is honestly slow for a destroyer trying to be aggressive. She does come with smoke, engine boost, and torpedo reload booster, which makes her flexible. You can fight, you can run, or you can YOLO and pray your torps connect. And to be fair, her torpedoes are still Japanese, so when they do hit, they hurt a lot. But here's the deal. She's still a big target, she eats shells like a cruiser, and once someone decides to radar her, it's not pretty. You either farm damage like a god or get vaporized in 10 seconds flat. But there's not much in between. So after all that, Harugumo goes into the B tier. She's strong, don't get me wrong, but she's situational. If you're good at positioning and know when to stop shooting like a maniac, she'll treat you well. But for most players, she's just a spicy piñata with guns. Now we move to a destroyer that's been around forever, but somehow still shows up to the battlefield looking fresh. Gearing. This ship is like that one quiet player in your team who doesn't talk much, but suddenly top scores and disappears again. She's not flashy, she's not meta-breaking, but she just works. And that's probably the most frustrating part for every red DD who underestimates her. Armed with 627mm guns, 3 dual turrets, gearing isn't some rapid-fire spammer like Harugumo or a cheeky burst fiend like Hallen, but she's got that classic American comfort. Her guns have good arcs, decent velocity, and she reloads in around 3.3 seconds, which is honestly solid when you consider she's balancing both gunfighting and torpedo play. Gearing also gets smoke and defensive AA, which turns her into a bit of a multi-role specialist. She's got the tools to fight other destroyers, she can farm battleships from cover, she can contest caps without instantly evaporating. She's like that all-rounder student in school who's decent at every subject but never brags about it. Her concealment is solid too. You can get it down to 5.8 kilometers, and that gives her the upper hand in most destroyer duels, especially when you combine that with the torpedo threat and her smokescreen to reset fights. So yeah, I'm putting Gearin in the A tier. Not because she's flashy or broken, but because she's reliable, flexible, and just plain solid. In a world full of edgy glass cannons and one-trick destroyers, Gearing is the steady hand that somehow always finds impact. On paper, she's got some flash. Those 130mm guns pack 6 barrels total across 3 twin turrets, and the range isn't half bad at 13.1 kilometers. You might think, oh, spicy Russian gunboat, but when you actually take her into a match, she feels more like she's doing cosplay of a damage dealer rather than actually being one. Her torpedoes, she's got 10 of them, 2 quintuple launchers, which sounds solid, but the reload and angles sometimes just scream, please spot me while I try to pretend I'm stealthy. You do have a little flexibility with the consumables. You can either take smoke or heal, which sounds like a fun tactical choice until you realize you're basically choosing between surviving slightly longer or dying behind a cloud. She also comes with an engine boost, which sounds like a win, but let's be real, if you're relying on that speed to disengage, you're already halfway to port. You'll still be a juicy snack for any carrier who knows how to cue a manual drop. And while 22.7 kHP is decent, it's paired with a rudder shift time of 5 seconds, which just means dodging is more of a polite suggestion than something you actually get to do. She does look fast though. 43.5 knots isn't a joke, but speed alone doesn't carry a destroyer, especially when your identity crisis means you're not dominating in guns, torps, or utility. You're just kind of there, existing awkwardly between categories. So yeah, Delny gets a B tier from me. She's not outright bad, but you're gonna need some serious mental gymnastics to convince yourself she's a top tier pick. You can have good games in her, no doubt, but she always feels like she's performing with a weighted backpack on. Almost great, but never quite there. Okay, listen. We've all had that one ship where after playing it for 10 games, we sit back and go, wait, was that actually kinda cracked? That's basically the Grozovoi experience in a nutshell. You pick her thinking she's just gonna be a slightly awkward hybrid with no real identity, then you realize she's a stealthy bruiser with sustained utility and pretty decent punch for a gunboat that also moonlights as a torpedo boat. And suddenly she's carrying your whole flank, as she's got 130mm guns with 3 double turrets. Nothing fancy in raw damage output, but the reload is smooth, the arcs are comfortable, and she can kite all day without getting punished too hard. The 12.3 kilometer range is nothing to brag about, but it's more than enough when you're constantly repositioning and not trying to brawl into radar cruisers. The tops, yeah. Double launchers with 5 fish each, so 10 total, are good enough to punish greedy pushes or secure the late game kills when things get scrappy. Now the Grozo doesn't scream duel me on paper, especially with only 20.9 kHP, which is kind of on the lower end for a T10 gunboat. But then you notice, wait a sec, she's got a heal. Not just smokes and engine boost, but an actual repair party. And on a destroyer, that's basically free value. You play your cards right, you can take a bad trade and still come out alive, which is huge for destroyer gameplay where mistakes usually mean port. Oh, and 39.5 knots with a 4.6 second rudder shift means she's agile enough to play wide angles and hard turn out of radar zones, or spammy kite duels. She's not as fast as the Delny, but she also isn't turbo-fragile and weirdly overextended half the time. Overall, Grozovoi is one of those ships that quietly does everything right. She's not meta-backing or flashy, and she doesn't have that ha-ha-high win button, but she scales well with skill and doesn't fall off in ranked or randoms. You can flex between aggressive openings or patient torp play, and the utility toolkit gives you more outplay potential than most destroyers. Honestly, she slept on way too much for what she brings. That's why she's landing in S tier for me. She just does too many things too well not to. Ah yes, the Elbing. Germany took one look at destroyers and said, let's make one, but with cruiser energy and battleship trauma, and somehow that's exactly what they delivered. This thing isn't sneaking around quietly like the other DDs, no. Elbing just stomps into the match with 150mm guns, 3 turrets, 6 barrels total, and dares you to underestimate it. And the thing is, it kinda works. The gun range is a juicy 13.3 kilometers, which basically means if you spot it, it's already throwing shells at you. And these aren't little pop gun shells either. These are borderline cruiser level projectiles, and they slap. Now, the health pool, 30.9k HP, that's not a destroyer, that's a light cruiser that went through an identity crisis and got stuck in the destroyer queue. She's tanky, she hits hard, and if you try to YOLO her thinking you'll just torp her into oblivion, good luck. She's got 10 torpedoes ready to send you straight to spectator mode. Though to be fair, those torps aren't fast, they don't hit like a truck, and they reload like they're on a lunch break. But still, they're good enough to punish greedy players and keep battleships nervous. The AA, actually Sole Saskiet, 223 continuous damage and 1750 explosion damage, which means if you're a carrier looking for an easy destroyer to farm, Elbing's not the one. And she's got defensive AA too, so planes are gonna have a rough time sticking around. Plus, you get smoke, engine boost, and she even hits a top speed of 36.2 knots. Sure, the rudder shift is a sluggish 6.3 seconds and she handles like a brick on ice, but that's the trade-off for being this tanky and this well-armed. She's not the fastest, not the sneakiest, and definitely not your typical DD playstyle. But if you treat her right, more like a backline gun platform with serious zoning potential, she'll straight up dominate. For me, she's an A-tier destroyer, a weird slow brawler with cruiser guns and destroyer ambition, and I kinda love her for that. Z-52 feels like that one ship everyone used to respect just because it had a cool gimmick, and then the game moved on and it didn't. On paper, it doesn't even look that bad. You've got 3 turrets with 2 128mm guns each, so decent volume of fire. The range sits at 12.1 km, which is alright, and the reload isn't terrible either. You can pepper target, and the AP does decent work if you catch broadside DDs, but that's kind of where the excitement ends. You're not scaring anyone with this ship. It's not terrible in a gunfight, but it's far from oppressive. It doesn't have the raw DPM to melt enemy destroyers, and it sure as hell isn't winning trades against ships like Harugumo or Grozovoi unless they absolutely throw. It's too middle of the road to be threatening and not tanky enough to stick around if things go sideways. That 20.3k HP pool might seem healthy on paper, but with no heal and nothing to really bail you out in rough moments, you're going down fast once someone decides they're done with your nonsense. Torpedoes? Yeah, about that. You've got 2 mounts with 4 torps each, for a total of 8. Not exactly a wall of skill. They're slow, not particularly stealthy, and feel more like a background feature than a reliable weapon. You don't really play Z-52 for its torpedoes, and if you do, I've got bad news. So what do you play it for? Hydroacoustic search. That's the one party trick this ship still has going for it. The hydro is excellent. It can make life miserable for enemy DDs and submarines who think they're safe in smoke or underwater. Combine that with smoke and engine boost and you've got a cap contesting, smoke busting pest. But once people get used to your tricks, it's hard to stay relevant in a match. Overall, Z-52 just feels like it's stuck in 2018, back when Hydro alone could win you cap fights and people were more careless. In the current meta, it struggles. There are just too many ships that do what it tries to do, only better. So for that reason, it's going into C tier. Not quite useless, but definitely not something I'd recommend grinding toward in today's environment, unless you just really like suffering with a Hydro crutch. And that's it for part 1 of the Tier 10 Destroyers tier list, from the mid-tier messes to the solid workhorses. But don't go anywhere, part 2 is where the real chaos begins, you'll want to see it. See you there, like and subscribe for more amazing yet brain-dead tier list like this.